All right, recording is rolling. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy you guys are here. We've got people from all types of businesses here today for the Placer 101. We actually typically do this monthly. We're actually shifting. I have another teammate coming on who's going to handle the Placer 101s, and they're going to be almost weekly. So there are going to be plenty of these, but then we will also have, I will focus on more specific topic webinars, like how to do specific things. So more coming on that. But my name's Jess. I'm not gonna use video just because I'm gonna be moving around on the screen a lot today, and I want you guys to be able to focus. And full disclosure, I talk with my hands a lot, so it's a little distracting. But my name's Jess. I head up customer education strategy here at Placer. I've been here since the company launched, and worked for many years before that in commercial real estate, retail, marketing, events, all that fun stuff. So I was the customer. I was you guys, and that's why I stepped into this role. So today we're going to talk about just the very basics of Placer and how to start navigating the platform. So I'm going to click into the dashboard here. All right. First things first. You guys should all have your own login because you signed up for the academy or in the academy for this session. I know you have a login, so we're good to go. We used to have to talk about that, but everybody has your own login. But it is important that you only use your own login. Not for us, but for you. Just if you use a somebody else's login, you won't hear back on your support tickets or your location requests, and those are very, very common. So it just keeps it a lot easier. We also have some people who will say, "I'm not getting emails about your events," and it's because they're using somebody else's login. So just make sure that's clean and the login you're using is the one that you get emails to, just so you get all the invites for these sessions, product updates, other cool things. When you get into Placer, I'm not going to get super into what Placer is, but after every webinar, I send out an email to you guys from me personally, and it says, here's a link to the recording. Also, here's a little content hub, and if you open that content hub, it will have supporting stuff. So, like a document that's about our data and how we get it. So you'll have all that at your fingertips. Don't worry. The basic explanation of Placer is we are the market leader in mobile location analytics. We're the market leader because we are accuracy first and privacy first. That's the big one. We are compliant with every privacy law. We're very big on the privacy part of the data. All the data that comes to Placer, we never get any data that's related to any device ID or individual person ever. We don't even get it. Everything within Placer is at an aggregated and extrapolated level, but we're still highly accurate, and that's the beauty of Placer. So if you guys ever have questions about the methodology, your CSM can walk you through that for sure. I will say you guys all will have some form of customer success. Some people, depending on your account type, will have like a group that helps you. Some will have an individual that helps you, but use them, guys. They're not like tech people. We hire CSMs from the field. Like they've worked in real estate and in civic and in finance. That's why they come to Placer. So their whole job is to help you get what you need out of the data. So you can say to them, "Hey, I'm trying to do XYZ. Where should I start?" And they will walk you through it. They'll help you meet those goals. That's the beauty of it. I see a raised hand. Ben, I actually can't call on you guys, but type your question into the Q&A area, please, and Ashley will get an answer for you. Thank you very much. All right. So you guys will all get information about Placer in general. Today we're just going to talk about Explore and Property. These two things I'm circling here. I know the mouse is kind of small, so I'll try to circle a lot for you guys. Explore and Property. We're going to talk about how to find locations, how to request them, and then what are the basic data points you get for any one location. We've got chains and market and industry data, but we're not even going to touch that today. Once you understand single location data, then it makes way more sense to say, all right, well, the chain is all of those single locations together, right? So we have a follow-up sessions on all of this in our academy. Don't worry, I will link you guys to the next recommended courses. And we'll also at the end of the call talk a little bit about academy and how to best use it. Our webinars are our most popular training tool so far. And we have a survey at the end of every webinar that says, was this helpful? What else could we have done to help you out? All of that, we directly take it to your CSM so they can help you guys. So very helpful feedback tool. All right, so I'm here in Placer. I'm in Explore. Explore is where you search for locations of any sort. You will see there's a search bar here at the top. I actually almost never use this search bar. This is more to go back to a report you were recently looking at. But this, in the Explore section, this search bar, this is where you can search for things and actually go there on the map. So I'll give you guys a few pointers with Explore in general. Number one, see how down here in this bottom corner, bottom right, I'm circling, there are 5 different base map types. You can select any of them just based on personal preference, what you like, right? So I tend to like a street map just because it's a little cleaner and easier on my eyes. But you guys can pick and choose which base map you like to use. Number two, with Explore, the zoom level where you're zoomed into works like a filter. So, and that's on purpose, right? To help you narrow things down because we've got tens of millions of locations in this system. So if you were to just search for Starbucks and thousands and thousands are here. So your zoom level helps find what you're looking for. So for example, if I do Starbucks and hit enter, it's only going to show me what's in this zoom level. And if I zoom out, it will start adding them to the map. So if you are zoomed into Atlanta, we're all remote here at Placer. I'm based in Atlanta. If you are zoomed in here to Atlanta and you search for something in, Texas, it will not just go there automatically. You have to tell the map to go there, and that's because it's working like a filter. And if it automatically went there, you'd be flying around on the map like crazy everywhere. So let's clear this back out here. You'll also see we've got a couple different ways to search. So I'm going to go back to all categories here. Let me refresh. I've got too many tabs open. It's a good placer tip, by the way. If you have a lot of tabs open, it is a lot of data. So sometimes it'll get a little hung up and you just need to refresh it. You'll see here with the search bar, you can search by name, like I just did, or you can, like Cumberland Mall, I can type that in, go there on the map. You could search by street address. So if I start typing, this keyboard does not like me today. If I start typing in an address, I can scroll down to the pin. See the pin here? And I can click that and it'll make the map go there. Address is my favorite way to search. Just personally, I like to put in an address because there are times when the spelling is different or the punctuation is different or maybe the shopping center name has changed. So I like to search by address because then I can just see what's already in the system. You'll also see this drop down here. I'm going to talk about different types of locations. So Placer uses certain terms kind of interchangeably. We use the term location, property, or POI, which is point of interest. All Placer data is built around a place, right? Some place or location. So location, property, point of interest, these all kind of mean the same thing. But you'll see here we have 3 different kinds of locations. So almost everything will be under properties. That's a shopping center, a store, a park, an office building, a zoo. Almost anything is under properties, right? For your single locations. Markets, we're not even going to talk about today. Markets are what it sounds like, full markets. If you wanted to look at data for an entire city, an entire zip code, or a county, or a bid, that is a market. We're not going to touch that today, but we have other webinars and courses on that to help you learn that very easily. And then we also have traffic pins. Traffic pins are a little different too. So I'm going to hover over here. See this, the Battery Atlanta? That's where the Braves Stadium is. And you'll see the polygon. We call it a geofence or a polygon drawn around it. This is really important. Placer being an accuracy first company, some other mobile location companies just drop a pin and look in, a certain amount of feet around it. You can do that in Placer too, but we also have a lot of verified locations like this. I call them verified. That's kind of not the best term, but it means we manually drew a geofence to track the visits. Now, it's very important to know this is not a marketing and advertising geofence. I know they use that term to deliver ads. We don't do that at all. That's nothing to do with Placer. This is just for looking at visitation. That's the shape it's looking at. And you'll see why this matters. See how this DoubleTree Atlanta is right here? If we had drawn that around that DoubleTree, we'd be counting those hotel visits for the battery, and it's not actually part of the battery. So you'll see the geofence is drawn, right? But in some cases, people say, I don't really care about how many people are going in or what their demographics are. I care about how many people are driving past it. Or maybe you care about billboards or just eyeballs. So that would be a traffic pin. A traffic pin is something that our support team creates. It gets placed on a DOT road. So it cannot be a parking lot, access road, or driveway. It has to be a DOT road. But we create a traffic pin there. So instead of looking at how many people go in and out of Cumberland Mall, we'd be telling you how many people drive through that traffic pin and what their demographics are and other data. So they're just different, but they're all three really helpful. We have most users, I would say, use some blend of all three: properties, markets, and traffic pins. Very, very normal. Now let's talk about this down here. See these map layers? And I've got most of them, the eyeball is off. The eyeball is on for what we call available. So this means if it's a dark blue dot, it means that's a location that we have manually created and verified. Our data entry support team, at some point somebody requested it, or it came to our data via a big chain and we added it, right? But there are certain types of locations that this will not be possible for. So there's a couple ways that this happens. Number one is a verticality or urban dense issue. So not Placer, but all mobile data. All mobile data looks top down and it cannot tell what floor something is on at all. So the battery, if the battery was 4 stories, we cannot tell you if that visit happened on floor 4 or the Starbucks on floor 1. No mobile data can tell you that. Now, there are companies that do that with beacons or in-store hardware, but we don't do that at Placer. So it's a very different thing. So in a lot of cases, though, we know those locations are there. We just can't geofence them accurately. And a good example of this, I just turned on the nearby activity layer. See all these light blue dots? This is inside a mall. So basically, the Macy's and the Costco, those are all three floors are their store. So they are under the dark blue available. But all the interior mall tenants, we can't geofence them accurately and single them out. We know they exist. We just can't single them out. So what we do is those are what we call nearby activity reports. You can still get the data. It just instead of saying there's a box around that T-Mobile, you say, all right, I want to look at 50 feet of this T-Mobile. This happens all the time. We have some customers that use exclusively nearby activity reports. So they, for example, they do all their business in Manhattan, and they say, I know we can't single out that Dunkin' Donuts, but I'm going to pick 4 Dunkin' Donuts and say I want to look at 250 feet of each one. So I have an apples to apples comparison. And the report itself looks pretty much the same as what I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes. It's just instead of the drawn box, it's just looking at 500 feet or 1,000 or whatever you choose. There's a bunch of options. Around that point, what is it? What's the data look like, right? The visitation. So that's where nearby activity is very common. If you can't find what you're looking for, always turn this on and see if it's there. There's a chance that we might have figured out that that one location is too dense. We can't single out that box, so it's in here as a nearby activity report. Very normal. We're going to talk about custom POIs in a little bit. We won't talk about that quite yet. We do have some closed locations if you really want those down here. You'll see in red for historical data. The other types of locations you will not find in Placer are part of the trust policy, the privacy policy, which we're pretty aggressive with because it's the right thing to do. There we have a whole web page about this, but there's the locations you will not find in Placer at all will be government and military, houses of worship, sensitive medical locations, so like rehab or Planned Parenthood facilities, and anything that is mostly children under 18, so daycares, swim schools, they're blocked from the system on purpose because it's just the right thing to do, or there are laws around it that we cannot give data on those. We have to block it out entirely. So even if you tried to physically go in and draw a custom POI yourself, it would tell you no, that is blocked because it's a military base or whatever the case may be. There's different levels of risk with those, and if you ever run into this, feel free to talk to your CSM about it. They'll walk you through it more. But I just want you guys to know if you look up a church and it's not in here, that's why. It's blocked from the system on purpose because it's the right thing to do. All right. So let's say you guys have searched. You can search by name or address. You can also search by category. There's also a bunch of subcategories. So if you said, you know what, I just want the fast food restaurants in this map view, you could hit apply and it's going to update. I'm going to turn off the nearby activity and it's going to update to just the fast food spots within this map view, right? Because your zoom does affect it again. So you can search by category. name. There's several ways to look here. Now, the next question people say is, what do I do if I can't find what I need? So we're going to talk about how to request locations in 1 second. But I also want to point to this, see the top right where I'm circling these little buttons up here? This one is just a full screen button. The square shape, if you just want a full screen for, screenshots, people, that's what that's for. Then there's a button here that says drop nearby activity pin. So in some cases, a user will say, I just want to drop that quick nearby activity pin and just see what the numbers look like very quickly. So that's what this button does. If you click drop nearby activity pin and you click it anywhere in the system, it's going to drop a pin on that lat long and it's going to spin it up and then it's going to give you a nearby activity report, which I just talked about. But the key thing to remember with this is it does not save this location. So for today, when you're in here, you can use this location, but it's not saved. You come in here a week later, it will not be here anymore. If you want it to keep being here, you need to request it, and we'll show that in 1 second. But this drop nearby activity pin is just if I want some temporary quick numbers, that's what that's for. There's also a button here that says create custom POI. Let me go do that again so you guys can see what I did here. See this button, create custom POI? Very important that everybody knows there's a difference in a POI that we create and verify and clean. Custom POIs allow you guys to draw a box or a polygon and get data on it, and it will save it so you can use it from then on. There are some limitations with custom POIs. They can't be used in things like ranking. There's certain other tools which we'll talk about in a minute with this in the property report that those can only use POIs that we've created. So if we added all the custom POIs, you guys would see millions and millions of things that other people created, which is not the best experience. So you can draw your own, but there are some limitations with it. But there are times when a custom POI is the right thing to do, period. And I'll give you guys a great example. The Battery Atlanta, that's actually a client of ours. And for the general public, the whole battery is meaningful because that is what the development looks like. But say they had an event and the event was only in the one top corner of that location. Well, that shape would make no sense to anybody else in the public, right? Or other placer users. It would make no sense. So the battery goes in and says, we had an event, it was in this corner. I'm going to create a custom POI that's that shape so I can use it from then on for this event. So if it is a truly custom need, like, you have a farmer's market and it's a part of a shopping center, but you just want to carve that part out. That is a custom POI. That's very normal. Our Parks and Rec folks tend to use custom POIs all the time. So there's no problem using them. I would just want you guys to know the difference. And you'll see when you create a custom POI, they have to be, I think, between 5,000 and 5 million square feet. You can name it. And then the category is important. And I want to point this out because as you guys see, there's all these different categories. I point this out because the math is different. The extrapolation math is different for different location types. And the best way I can explain this very easily is think about people's habits. When people go to a theme park, they rarely go alone. But when people go to the urgent care, they usually go alone, right? That you take different amounts of people. So the category does matter. There's not one simple math. That's why Placer is a leader in the space. We have these advanced algorithms for different location types. Conversion rates are different for grocery versus high dollar furniture, for example, right? So I point this out to say the category matters. So if you need help, you can talk to your CSM or you could look at another location in the system and say, what is its category? Because I want to compare to that, right? So that's why the category matters. But the custom POI will save for you. And it will also be visible to everybody else in your account. You are the only person that can edit it, but the rest of the people in your account, your Placer account can use it. So if you guys have 10 people using Placer, I'll show you guys in a bit in my zone, you can see other people's custom POIs. So they're not secret, but they are custom. All right, let me see if I wanted to cover anything else on Explorer before I talk about requests. Q&A is happening. Ashley's answering those in the Q&A chat. All good. Okay, next question people have is then how do I request new things be added to Placer? Which is very common, happens every day. I think we add something like 10,000 new locations every week. It is an incredible amount that we add. We have a data entry team that does all of this. So when you want a new location, I'm going to show you guys where to go. There, see this My Zone button here? There's a couple places to get here. So you can go into My Zone, or the top corner up here, see this question mark? This is where I prefer. So the question mark has a few things here that are really important. Before I talk about the request locations, I'm going to show you guys. See this Help Center? Again, I'm going to show you how I got there. Question mark, Help Center. The Help Center is where you guys can get answers on most anything you can think of. So, for example, custom POI that I just talked about. See all these articles? What is a custom POI? And we write out the answer. What are the limitations? I think people, I'd say about 60% of the time people have questions. They're like, I found the answer in the Help Center. It is a very robust Help Center. So almost anything you have questions about, you can type in the term here, read what it says. It will give you some guidance. So that's number one, Help Center, right? You'll also see under the question mark, Academy, which I'll show you guys at the end. You've already seen it a little bit. Academy and webinars both go to the Academy. Help Center opens the Help Center, but request locations and contact support. You'll see if you click request locations, it's going to open this modal. And I'll show you guys this again in 1 second. I'm just showing you different ways to get there. There's also a contact support button. So contact support, if you guys just have a general tech question, right? A tech support issue, this ask support a question is where you go and you fill out the form here. And this will submit a ticket and then they will get back to you. That's why I said if you're using somebody else's login, you won't get an email back. So it's a little frustrating, but I think you should all be good on that. And then add locations, again, will open up that same modal to start requesting locations. The other way to get there is, like I mentioned, I clicked on My Zone and My Zone opened. Now mine's a little empty because this is my training account. But you guys will see My Zone has a lot of cool things. It's got tags. We have separate trainings on all of this. The traffic pins you've requested, your custom POIs that you've created. Again, like I mentioned, custom POIs. Here's the ones I've made, and I can go look at the ones that other people have made too. So yeah, there's different options. But then down here, support requests. Support requests also, this is going to show you your history of support requests. But again, contact support, add location. So there's a bunch of ways to get here is my point. But we walk you through it. So we just give you a lot of options so you don't get lost. But if you want to request a new location be added to Placer, if you've searched and you couldn't find it, that's perfectly normal, especially with locals. We do have systems where we ingest large amounts of chain data. So like we'll get updates regularly on all of the Walmarts and all of the BPs. But we don't, there's not one source for every local. So if the local's not in there, it's okay. You just need to request it. And you will get historical data. Even if you add it now, our data can look back, right? We have all the mobile data. It's just assigning it to a location. So if you want a single location, there's a form for that. If you want to do multiples, actually under property, we actually give you a file that you can fill in and upload, and it will match to locations, and it will tell you your spreadsheet had 40, these 30 are already in here, and these 10 we need to submit. We have videos that will walk you through this as well that I'll point you guys to at the end of the session. But this is also where you request a traffic pin or a new chain. So I just want to make sure everybody knows this is here. The main thing I want you to know is this is not an overnight process. A single property can take 3 to 5 days to get added because we have a multi-step accuracy and QA process to make sure it's right, that the geofence is correct. We clean it. We make sure nothing is pulling locations from next door. So there's a big process. So if you guys, my point I will give to everybody, if you're new, don't wait until you need the data to ask for your locations. If you submit it today, you'll get it next week at some point in a few days. So I will say sometimes you'll upload a spreadsheet, and a lot of the ones you're asking for are already there. They're just so it'll link you to them, but it does take a few days. So if you guys have reports coming up, go and request these a few weeks earlier, or proactively start asking for them at earlier in your contract. It'll just save you a lot of time spent waiting. But that's a big one. I'll also say everybody's contract differs a little bit. Depending on your contract, you'll have different amounts of locations you can request at one time. That's all in your contract, so your CSM can walk through it with you. But almost never, nobody ever uses their up like they're all of theirs. It's really rare for that to happen. So that's all in my zone to ask for tickets to get locations added. Let's go back here. I'm back in Explore. If I start selecting locations, you can select between 1 and 8 at a time. And it'll tell you, see this little button here says selected. It'll tell me what I have checked off. If I click open report, it will then open a property report. So we've now gone out of Explore and we're into the property tab. Now, you guys voted mostly for shopping center and store, so this is the example I'm going to use, but just so everybody's comfortable, the report looks the same, right? This is the same. This is a property report for restaurants. Looks the same. I'm gonna close some of these just so it doesn't slow things down. Here's the zoo and the aquarium. Report looks the same. So all of it, just if I'm not using a location that you relate to, don't worry. The report works the same way. So don't worry about it. We've got parks. You'll see this is a traffic pin. Traffic pins are the only one that look a little different, and they only look a little different because they're called impressions instead of visits, because they're not visiting that point on the road. They're driving through it or walking or whatever the case may be. So that's an impression or a viewer. So it's the same report, just a little bit different wording. So let's go back to this report here. Now, I'm going to give you guys kind of a tour of all the stuff in here, like this section here. Now, I'm going to go fast because there's a lot in here, but again, don't worry, don't panic. We're going to handhold you. We're going to help you through all this, and you can come back to this as often as you like. What I want you guys to do is to be comfortable getting in here and playing around. And I tell everybody, my recommendation is that you pull up a place that you're familiar with. Where do you grocery shop, or where do you go to the gym? Pull that up, because when you have that context, it will help all the data make more sense to you. And you're not going to break anything. We're just, coming in here and looking at your local shopping center. So I'm in the property section. There's an overview here. Some of you will have a tab above this that says something like event report or custom overview or civic dashboard. They're all different, and I just want everybody to know your account can request a custom view that says, I want 3 widgets from here and 3 from here and 1 from here. Those are the ones I use. So I want a custom overview. It's not the user level, but your whole account, all of your users, you can have a custom view made with your CSM. So if you see that in a video, nothing's wrong. It's just that they've requested that custom view. Couple things, key things to know. Like I said, you can look at anything between 1 and 8 locations at a time. If you want to remove a venue, there's a little trash can. If you want to replace it, you can change it. You'll see these 3 dots that also give you some options here. You'll also see you can add a location over here with this plus sign. If you're like, I want to add a third one, you can. All works fine. Here you've got your date picker. Placer data goes back 7 years. We have a rolling 7 years of history. So even if we draw a box around a new location today, if it's been open for 5 years, you can look back at those 5 years, right? So your date picker has a lot of options. We've got these relative, options. You've also got fixed dates if you just want specific quarters or months or years. Then you can do a custom range. If you're like, I just care about these 8 days in a row. You cannot right now do disconnected days. That's kind of a feature request. And it's a good time for me to mention feature requests in general. You guys are all new, so you're not going to have wish list items today. But as you think of things that you're like, oh, I wish Placer did that, please tell your CSM. I tell everybody in the nicest way possible, please complain. We can't fix it or we can't make it better. And we have a very a long-standing tradition of single thing a user asks for, we file a report on it and it goes into a board, and that's how product works on what they want to build next. When I came to Placer, 3/4 of this stuff did not exist, but customers asked for it, so that's what we built. So always we want the items. And a good example of that is somebody recently said, I really wish I could pick disconnected or non-contiguous dates. I wish I could pick the 1st, the 10th, and the 21st not connected. So you can't do that today, but that's a great submission. If you guys would like that, let your CSM know and we'll submit it. So you can see you can pick your date range here. You'll also see visit durations. Every location in Placer has a default category. And it's default because which is over 10 or under 10 minutes. Now this is on purpose because it's what is a meaningful visit, right? A 4-minute visit to Taco Bell is probably a customer. A 4-minute visit to an AMC theaters is they're not watching a movie, right? So it's just different. But you can change it. If you want to change the duration, you can. It just depends on what you care about. Some people really care about those short visits. Some people don't want them counted at all. So that's up to you guys. We have a number of filters for the whole report. I'm not going to get into all of them, but I just want you guys to know they're here. If you wanted to look at a filter and say, I only want this whole report for weekends, or I just want it for hours of 8 to 5 o'clock, that's it. Or I just want people who stay over an hour, or I just want people who live within 10 miles. All of that you can do in here. We won't get really into the filters right now, but I do want to point out this top one. The top one will default to visitors. For a property report, it's going to default to visitors and take out the employees or the residents. So the best way I can explain this is our panel, these tens of millions of mobile devices, we can see, not at the individual level because we don't stare at that, but the algorithm knows where it lives overnight and where it works full time during the day. There's a little bit of nuance to that, but the Help Center has really great articles on it. But in general, if you're looking, this is a shopping center here, Paces Ferry Plaza, so nobody lives there. But if it, say you were looking at a mixed use development and you were like, I want to filter out the resident activity, right? Then you would just look at visitors. So you can add these in and look at other things if you'd like, but it's going to default you to visitors. I'd say 95% of the time, it's just visitors that people look at. Now, if you do filter in some way, and you filter your dates or your durations or your, audience, and you get a message that says insufficient data, nothing is broken. That is the answer. So what this means is, if you filtered it to a point where the amount was now so small that we can't confidently do the extrapolation, we're going to say insufficient data. In that situation, you need to open up the search in some way, right? Instead of a week, look at 2 weeks. Instead of, add more visits in. Instead of one audience, add in somebody else. Usually it's the dates. Usually the dates are the thing. Usually people will say, for example, we had an event on this one day and it's telling me insufficient data when I just look at one day. Well, that's true. So usually they may need to look at the whole week. You can still see the day spike, which I'll show you guys in a minute. But if that's the case, you just need to open the filters a little bit. So it's very common. There's not a tried and true number of how many visits you have to have for the math to work right, but it is roughly 1,000. So if you guys have an event and there were 44 people there, it's going to tell you insufficient data for sure. You need scale. To do the math well, you need some scale. And that's very common. So if you guys run into this, your CSM will work with you on it. Don't worry. We'll give you some cool workarounds and other things to use. But just know nothing's broken if you see insufficient data. You'll also see over here, you can star the report. That's actually how I saved this one, Placer 101 demo. It will save with all your filters in place. I cannot recommend starring your reports enough. It saves so much time. I don't have to come back in here and change the filters every single time. They're already set. So a lot of people will have their reports pulled up. They'll star them, and every week or month or quarter, they come in and look at all of them. We'll talk about push reports and we'll talk about exports at the end. So we'll get there. Every section, you see this little question mark I'm hovering on here, it has a learn more. If you have any questions about what's in that section, like what does average dwell time mean? We put it here. This is the help center, just in small format, by the way. So I'll close this back out and show you guys again. Question mark on metrics. It's going to read here, or you can open it up to read it in a bigger form here. So anytime you have questions about the metrics or whatever's in that section, the tooltips are incredibly helpful. You'll also see over here, every section will have download capabilities into different formats. Sometimes it's Excel, sometimes it's an image or a JPEG, sometimes it's a file like a shape file. Depending on the section, you can download things from that. Some sections will have a metric selector. So this is, for example, if I said, you know what, I don't care about year over 3 year visits, just take it out of my view because I want my view to be clean, you can take that out. My number one new user advice is this panel visits, turn it off, hide it. It doesn't help anybody unless you are a data scientist with a lot of crazy skills. Panel visits is a raw data point that we use that goes into the math, but you really can't use it yourself. So a lot of times new users would say, I ran a report and what are panel visits? I don't get it. And I just say, hide it. Just get rid of it. You don't need it. It's handy to have here just for some people, but these are the numbers everybody's going to use, right? Your visits, your visitors, basically. So this is your initial metrics. It's funny, a lot of people will buy Placer thinking that the metrics are the number one thing they're going to use, like the visit number itself, when in reality, they end up using the trends and the demographics and the psychographics and the other cool visitor journey stuff. They use it more, which I'll show you guys in just a few minutes. So here in the overview, you've got your initial visits, you've got your trend line, pointers or tips for this tool. If you're on a daily aggregation, all of these tools here, you'll see toggles where you can turn things on and off. There's an annual summary toggle. It'll give you some little annual roll up over here. You guys can play with all the toggles because you're not going to break it. They're all helpful. But the main one people use is here's your aggregation. So if I were to smooth this out to a monthly visit, this is more smooth. As you hover over it, it will give you the actual number. And of course, you can download this. But on a daily aggregation, you have one other cool thing, which is on a low or a high day, you can click on that day and it will give you this Placer Assist panel that just gives you a little context. Was it a holiday? What was the weather like? Was there a huge, sometimes it'll say that there was a big, like an NFL game next door, right? It'll say that at the bottom. So that just gives you some context. Sometimes you'll see a very low day and click on it and it's like, oh, there was a snowstorm. That's why there was no traffic. So the daily assist is just kind of a helpful little tool to give you some initial metrics. So if people said, hey guys, we had a storm this day, so our visits were down 73% versus an average Thursday. That's just a handy tip to know that it's there. So that's your visit trend. I'm going to skip some of these and come back to them at the end. They make way more sense at the end and when I talk about these sections because they're pulled from there. This is your visitor journey routes, the roads that people take to get to and from the location you're looking at. So if you zoom in here, you can see this entrance is the most used. It's also the most used exit. Why does this matter? Where should I put signage and billboards? Or what entrances are least and most used if I'm trying to consider a new location for my brand? Or if I'm the landlord and I'm trying to show, hey, there's just as much activity near this back entrance, even though it's the back entrance. Where to put for events, people look at this to be like, where do I put people to direct traffic? Are they driving by my competitors to get to me, right? So this is just your to and from, your routes. Very helpful just to kind of get a feel for the roads that are used. You've got time of day, visits by hour, visits by day of week, and duration. How long are they there? The main tip I'll give you guys with this is you see how this is a shopping center. Paces Ferry Plaza is a shopping center with a Whole Foods in it. And this is a different Whole Foods down the street in the same market. I actually helped develop this center years and years ago, so I'm just used to it. But so a shopping center almost always has more visits than a store. So if you wanted to equalize this out, instead of number of visits, switch it to percentage of visits. So now it's doing a percentage, so you get kind of a more apples to apples look, so you can compare. This seems like a small thing, but guys, I've had people get deals done just using this widget. I've had people say that shopping center is super busy and we've had nobody will agree to go here because they think parking is an issue, but they were able to show that this new concept coming in would only be open before 11 a.m. And so it was a time when the center's more dead, right? Which seems like a small thing, but we actually had people with get exclusives and restrictions with national tenants lifted by showing this. So don't doubt the small data. It's pretty powerful stuff. We're going to go very quickly now through some of these because they're not all as not important's not the right word, but they're not used quite as often. Property info is parcel data. This is like who owns the parcel, tax information. You can see the parcels here, and over here who owns them. Sometimes it has contact info. I will say we are refreshing this data with a new vendor in the near future. So if anything's outdated, let your CSM know, but we do know. We're bringing on a new vendor for the parcel data. I'm going to skip visits. It's a little repetitive, but Retail sales is interesting because most of you guys will have a diamond here. You won't be able to access this. I bring this up because I want you guys to know the way that Placer operates. We've got the base platform, which has a ton of data in it. But we also have a whole bunch of optional add-ons, and a lot of you guys will already have purchased them in the contract phase. So if you see something with a diamond as a little diamond icon, that means you have not added that onto your system. The great thing about this is instead of just making the tool more expensive for everybody, we let you pick and choose. So we'll say, all right, transaction data is sometimes expensive. Some people don't want it, some do. So retail sales is an add-on. So if you guys see the diamond here, it means you haven't added it on. I want to point out this. Let me move this box. See this link here that I'm circling? It says Marketplace. If you guys open the Marketplace link, it's going to show you everything that you have access to. So if you click on Applications, you will see Enabled for everything that you have enabled. And if you have not purchased that, it'll just be blank like this. And if you click it, it will request you can request a demo and pricing right here. So this is also helpful if you guys are ever like, we already have access to, for example, we already have access to, what's a good example? Chain or what, if you already have these and you just want to read about the methodology, the marketplace also has that. So you've already got it enabled, but down here you'll see the one pager, benefits, how to access. There's often methodology docs here. So this is just the good resource. The marketplace is where you read about all those tools and what they mean, where they come from, how they work. So that's just so you know, that's what retail sales, some of you will have it, some won't. The retail sales add-on is one of our popular ones just because it combines real credit card data with our visitation algorithm. So it's pretty cool. Variants. All the rest of what I'm going to talk about today is all included in the base platform. So we're not going to talk add-ons today. Variants does quick math for you. And this is a great example of something customers asked for, so we built it. They were having to do all this math themselves to see what is my traffic up, year over year, month over month. This was granted 6, 7 years ago, but we built this to do the math for you. So variants, here you're looking at the visits for this location, weekly or monthly aggregation compared to another time period. So for example, I say I want to look at the monthly traffic compared to a year ago. September was up 1%, but August was down almost 6%. So it just does that math for you very quickly. Just to know, just be aware that this goes back multiple years, right? We have 7 years of history, so it goes back quite a bit. So we have a lot of people who will say, I want to know compared to 2024, pre-COVID, sorry, not 2024, 2019. So pre-COVID, I'm still down 11%, right? And that's a marked difference. So it just does the math for you. This is one location, the one below it, you can compare locations side by side. Why does this matter? Everybody at Placer uses this to be able to say, all right, I'm looking at locations to see which of these shopping centers has bounced back from COVID, or which of my four store locations is beating the others, right? They also look at this to say, we added a new tenant to a shopping center. What happened to the traffic? So anything that's related to change, variance is used for that. So this is a pretty handy tool for visit variance. Visitor journey. Now we get into what I think is the fun stuff. So far, we've talked mostly numbers. I like when you get into people's behaviors. What are they doing? What do they like? That's my favorite thing personally. So visitor journey has two really big components. The one is called prior post and one is called favorites. So the top top two sections, we combined them. The top two sections are your prior post. So where are people before and after the location you're looking at here? Now keep in mind, these before and afters do have to be Placer locations. So if you were to download this and add it up, it won't add up to 100 because everything in existence is not in a Placer POI yet. So that's okay that nothing is broken. That's just of all the places we have in our system, here are where they are before and after. The spider chart is a short version. Most people tend to use the list, right? So before and after this shopping center, here are the places they typically are. Now you can look at it by category. If you said, I only care about where they're eating before and after, I'm going to narrow this down to dining. Now I just have restaurants. You can download this in a big spreadsheet because there are pages of it, lots of pages. There's also a map view. If you just want to have a map view, that's an option as well. I kind of like the list myself. But why does this matter? When you're trying to do economic development or tenant recruitment, or if you're a tenant, if you are a business and you're trying to look at where should I go and locate my business, it's very helpful to know if people are already going. If a bunch of people are leaving the shopping center you're looking at and going to other restaurants, well, then restaurants are a part of their trip. And if you are a restaurant, that's good for you. But we've also seen instances where people said, I have two restaurants, they're not doing great. What's happening? Turned out everybody that was shopping in that visit, they wanted to go places with drive-throughs, and those businesses did not have them. We've also seen we've uncovered all kinds of other cool patterns with prior post, where you can just figure out what do they need, where are they going. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with this. You'll also see prior post is your before and after, but favorites are where do those visitors go all the time. Period. It's not in the same trip. It's just where do they go the most because I need to know that because I need to know what to build for them. So favorite chains is what it sounds like. The chains they go to the most. Now, why is this interesting? This is a Whole Foods market here. And look at this. 92% of the people that went to that Whole Foods in the last 12 months went to a Publix too. So they're not loyal to this Whole Foods or to Whole Foods in general. You can tell that very clearly. Now keep in mind, see how I'm circling the date range up here? I tend to look at last full 12 months. A really helpful point for all of you, work with your team and decide on a default that you're usually always going to use. Some people like the six months, some people like 12, some people like 1 month. Depends on your business. But we've had instances where people say, I'm confused. My coworker pulled the same report and they have a different result, but it's because they used a different date range. That was the why. So just make sure you're using the same dates. That's a really helpful tip. If you guys are familiar with this location, this is in the middle of one of the most affluent zip codes in probably the country. It's an incredibly wealthy zip code. But look at this. I'm going to up this minimum visits to 4. And I want to know, even though this is a really affluent zip code, where are they shopping for apparel at least 4 times a year? Because you'd think this is a Neiman's and Saks locate. Check it out. 1, 2, 3, and 5 are all discount, which was not the case 6 years ago, but things have shifted in the economy. And now that's where they shop for apparel the most. So I point this out to say everybody can use this for economic development, for merchandising, for event planning. If you're trying to get sponsors, you can show affinity that the people that visit my place or whatever place, even my competitor's place, these are what they like. These are the chains they go to the most. Very helpful information. We have a lot of people who will use this for like pro sports. So they'll look at their stadium and say, what are the places that people that visit the Braves stadium, where do they go the most to eat or to get their car serviced or anything you can think of? This is what they use. So favorite chains is at the chain level. Then you've got favorite places. So it's not just that they go to Publix, but which Publix do they go to with an address? So you'll see again, you can narrow these categories down pretty significantly. If I were to say, I just want to know what restaurants, oops, sorry, let's clear that. What restaurants they're all going to the most, and I want to know where they're going at least 3 times a year or 3 times in this 12 months here. Now I've got it, and I can download this 50 pages, but I can download the whole spreadsheet, sort and filter it. This is used by almost every team that uses Placer to see what's the affinity for other locations because that's really helpful to know. So that's all in your visitor journey. I'm going to go slightly out of order. So trade area, we have a whole separate webinar on trade area and demographics that's more in depth. That's actually for all of you. If you were to do a next training after this, it's in our academy, which I'll show you guys in a minute. That's the next best one. I can either the chains training if you're really into chains, looking at whole chains, or the trade area and demographics training because these tools they have a lot of options and they're really robust. So I'll give you guys the high level of what you'll see here. Trade area is exactly what it sounds like. Where do your shoppers live and work? Right? That's the big question. And why this matters, when I first started in real estate, I'm dating myself, but years ago, we used mile rings 135, 357, and we knew that was very naive, but that's what we had. But with mobile data, you can look at a true trade area. And this is incredible information because every day I see an example where locations that are side by side, literally side by side, one of them pulls from 50 miles and one pulls from 2. And it doesn't matter that they're side by side, they have a different draw. Very common. This is probably one of the biggest reasons people started investing in Placer and buying Placer was retailers and other people saying, I need to know the truth because even if I am Publix, all my stores don't have the same trade area. Some have a very small one and some have a huge one. So this is where you get the information. So trade area, you can see here, I'm looking at the home location of people who have visited one time or more in this time period, the last 12 months. So you'll see there's a down here I'm circling, there's a dot, that's a mile ring. So you'll see this is a huge trade area. Why? Well, it's because this location is right on I-75. It's on a major interstate. So you've got visits all the way out here in Birmingham who have stopped at this place and visited. But if I take my visits to minimum of 4 a year, suddenly that trade area starts pulling itself in and getting more accurate. So as you zoom in, it's going to get more and more specific, right? More detailed. Here's that 5 mile or that mile ring. You can adjust it, right? 3, 5, whatever you want. I'm going to turn it off. But now you get this really detailed map of the actual trade area of any location. There's a couple views here. You've got a gradient. This is the gradient or heat view. You've also got a hexagon. I like the hexagon view just because it's a little chunkier and easier for my brain to absorb. And then you'll see you can switch the locations in your report. So this is your trade area at the base level. There's also a full screen function. I bring this up because a lot of people like it for presentations. It's a big screenshot. You can also download this into, because it's a map file, you've got shape and KMZ formats as well. A lot of our customers, if you use a full GIS system, will take trade areas out of this, put them into Esri or other GIS tools. Very, very common. Trade area. All right. Visitor by origin is the same data, but assigned to zip codes. What zip codes do people live and work in when they're people that are coming to whatever location you're looking at? The really key thing to remember about Placer is, well, number one, know what your contract has for your territory. Most people sign a contract for the whole country because they want all the comps, but some people say to save money, we bought Placer data just for the state of Georgia. And so if you try to look at something in another state, it'll say missing permissions, right? But you can, within your permission area, if you have Georgia or whatever, you don't have to just look at your locations. You can look at your competitors, all of them. If they're in here, you can look at them, which is a lot of the power. We've had some people say, I bought this, I thought I'd use it for my locations. I ended up looking at our two main competitors and using that data to action more, which is absolutely common, especially with this widget. So visitor by origin is your top zip codes, basically, right? So see here, I've got the number of visits or the percentage of visits coming from the zip codes, and it lists them here. You can download it. For anybody that does marketing, target marketing on the call, with all of the changes to privacy laws, being able to target devices is really going away over time. So geo-targeting is the thing. That's why people use this so much. So it's cool. You also have a year-over-year change view. So where do the zip codes that I'm losing ground versus gaining ground in? You can target these zip codes with print or digital advertising, and then watch over time. Is it having an effect? So this is one of my favorite widgets. Some people, for anybody that does marketing and advertising, I think this is the widget they use more than anything else. You'll also see here, I toggle both of them on so you can get kind of a little battleground view. We've had some people say, I have 3 stores in the area and I want to know which zip codes are mostly going to which store, especially if they're going to ever close a store or open a new one, right? So they can kind of see how it breaks down. So that's your visitor by origin. I know I'm going very fast. Trade area by distance is exactly what it sounds like. Customers asked us, how far do people drive or how far away do they live? I like this distribution view a little better. I'll just clean it so it's a little easy to see. So here you've got home location. So trade area by distance. How far away do people tend to live and work? And what are the buckets for that? So you see for one visit, you still got a lot of people who live 10 to 30 miles away. But if I were to up this to 3 visits, Suddenly, my most, my loyal customers that come more than 3 times live 1 to 2 miles away. I've had customers get whole deals and market planning deals done with just this widget too. Real life example, we had a barbecue restaurant in Texas that their trade area was huge. It was like 48 miles. And they said they were afraid to open a new location. They were like, we're going to hurt our existing business. But they used this and figured out all the people that came from more than 5 miles came one time ever just to try it because they were in town, whatever the case may be. They were like, oh, so we can space our restaurants and know we're not going to hurt ourselves because our loyal visitors, they all live within 5 miles, right? So very helpful information. And last, you've got trade area overlap. Now, this blob shape is also one of the reasons people buy Placer, and I want everybody to know what it means. As you know, within Placer, or as I mentioned, you can look at things like drive time, right? That's a 10-minute drive time. Our drive times, just FYI, are with no traffic. So, no traffic, just a basic 10-minute drive time or whatever number you want. There's also a mile ring if you want the mile rings. But the true trade area is specific to Placer because it looks at what is the shape where 70% of your traffic volume is coming from. Now, you can adjust this, but most people don't. What it means is this blob, this fancy blob, is the shape that 70% of your visits come from. It's your core business. If I set this to 100, remember that at the top up here, when there were people all the way out in Birmingham, if I had it set to 100%, it would be looking everywhere over there too. But that's not really my core business or my core trade area. So 70% is just the default, and most people don't touch it. But if you wanted to, you could say, well, where does, 50% of my visits come from? What's that shape look like? So just half. So here you've got a more specific shape. And then what is the overlap between these two locations trade areas? And we do the math for you right down here. It's all calculated out for you. So this is for competitive analysis, for looking at, we've had instances where a retailer will say, I'm being pitched on this new location, so I'm going to pull up that shopping center and my nearest location and see, are they already the same trade area or is it a new trade area for me? And it differs, and there is no right or wrong. You guys, a lot of you probably know Starbucks will put locations literally across the street from each other in some markets. It's an entire trade area overlap, but the stores are still profitable. Other brands won't allow any overlap. So it just depends on the strategy and what the preference is. So that's all trade area. Now, demographics, I went out of order because trade area determines a lot of what your demographics are. So, because Placer doesn't get any identifiable information from humans, it's all based on a very sophisticated algorithm of where they live and work, those census block groups, and what is the makeup of those block groups. So, I'm going to go a little out of order. I'm going to come back to audience profile because it is the behemoth of the page. It is really in depth. You've got a breakdown here for household income. At the bottom, you've got ethnicity. So just a quick breakdown of the demographics here of this trade area. These two boxes, age and gender, look a little different. They're kind of freebies that we tossed in. The best explanation I can give of these is see gender here. So I'm looking at the Whole Foods. See that the Paces Ferry doesn't pop up, only Whole Foods does. These two widgets come from credit card swipe data, actual transaction data, and the card holder. And the reason we added this here is because almost every trade area in the US is 51% female, 49% male, almost all of them. But you can have a store in that same trade area that is all men who go there. But the only way you can tell that, you can't tell that from the trade area, but you can tell it from the card swipes. So that's where we built these in. But if there are not enough card swipes inside that store, these disappear. They don't show up at all. Again, nothing's broken. It means we just didn't have enough card swipes inside that Whole Foods for it to show here. So you will see instances where a retailer's big. Like I had one the other day that was a big furniture store, but everybody that buys there pretty much finances. They don't swipe a card, so we couldn't show age or gender for that location because there weren't enough swipes in store. So that's why those look a little different. But the big one is up here. Audience profile, in its simplest form, allows you to choose a shape, whatever shape you want, whether that is the true trade area, the ring radius, the drive time, or even the walk time. Walk time for urban is important. Pick your shape and then say, I've picked my shape, and now I want to look at the data for that shape. And there's a bunch of bunch of data sets. So I'll give you guys an example. Based on the true trade area and a drive time. I'm going to hit apply. So now I've got my true trade area and a 10-minute drive time, right? And you'll also see captured and potential. We won't get too into today, but the follow-up training gets into that. That basically just says, the, am I looking at the whole trade area or do I want to weight it? So this is the whole trade area, but you might get most of your visits from like this space. So captured would weight that one heavier because it's your captured market. That gets a little complex, but don't worry, the follow-up training is very detailed about that. So now I've selected my two shapes. Now down here, all of these data sets can be applied to this shape. You guys will see certain ones are on, certain are off. Certain ones don't work for captured market, only for potential. That's just that depends on the data set itself. So I'm going to switch it to potential. And now we can look at, let's look at, so you've got census. The most popular for demographics is PopStats by far. PopStats is updated more frequently than the census and it's more granular. So I'll give you guys an example of how to read this. I'm going to benchmark to the state because it's just, comparing Georgia to Georgia is better than comparing Georgia to the nation for most cases. So the way I read this is, all right, in my true trade or in my 10-minute drive time, the median income, for example, is 116. And see how this middle line here, the middle line or the number 100 is the state average or the state benchmark. So this median income of 116 is 52% above the state average in this particular area. Households in poverty is significantly below the state average for this particular trade area. And these data sets are there's so much here, guys. So don't get overwhelmed. Talk to your CSM, tell them here's what we focus on. A lot of times people will dive into this and they end up finding that they thought that their best locations would have these things in common. They actually have these other things in common. I'll give you an actual example. We were working with Wegmans years ago, and Wegmans looked at all of their stores compared to their top like 10 stores. And those top 10 stores by sales all had commonalities in education and home value. And that was originally not part of their expansion strategy, but they were like, okay, we need to build it in because where we have stores that have more college educated people and this home value of X or above, we do more sales, right? So that gets into a more advanced use, but just so you know, that's kind of the things people do with this data. You'll also see you can look at things like psychographics. So Mosaic is included for everybody. Experian Mosaic is very normal, very like widely known to be great. So in my true trade area, you've got 37% of my visits are coming from these Power Elite, this segment. We will give you guys a full handbook for Mosaic, but just so you know, my tip is literally, this is just my hack. I like to just Google Power Elite Mosaic, and it'll give you the Cengage at the very top, this link. You can look at, instead of having to search the handbook, it'll just link you to those pages. And then you can look at all kinds of stuff about that segment. What kind of channels do they adopt the most for marketing? There's even down here written out, there will be a how to market to this segment. So this is where the people that get really good at using Placer data, they figure out it's not just demographics, it's psychographics that matter. I have a real life example of this too. Years ago, was working with a real estate company, and they had a Whole Foods that opened, and the Whole Foods had the exact same, that trade area had the same demographics as all their other stores. It had enough people, it was dense enough, and they made enough money. But the store did not perform the same. Turns out the whole difference was psychographics. You can have a lot of people who make over 100 grand, but if they are personality wise, if their habit is not organic food, they're not going to go pay more at Whole Foods. So psychographics matters. It's sometimes it is the biggest difference maker. So psychographics are incredibly powerful. Oops, let's go back to my page. Besides Mosaic, we also have Persona Live, behaviors and attitudes. There's some expansion ones here that are options for segmentation as well. So anyway, the second follow-up training on this is really helpful. It gets into all these buttons and what they mean, so highly recommend that. All right, we've only got 20 more minutes. Okay. I have to breathe here. This is like a fire hose of information. The other webinars being so much shorter is a lot more helpful, but I want you guys to be able to get started. So area analysis. This whole section has between 2 and 4 widgets, depending on your contract. that just helps you know other stuff about the area. So, for example, vehicle traffic volume. I think everybody has access to this. And you see, you can look at locations and click on a road segment. This comes from Enrix, our partner Enrix. You cannot change the segments and you can't like bulk download any of this. We're actually building in the 2024 data right now. It should be here next month. They do an annual roll up. They don't do monthly, so it comes in every year the next year. So 2024 will be here soon. But you can see if I click on this segment, average daily car volume, and even directionally, when is that segment of road busy? Why does this matter? And how is it different from our traffic pins? This easiest way I can explain this, I'm going to change the view just to make it a little easier on the eyes here. Um, a traffic pin, our traffic pin counts every impression. So if a bus goes through a traffic pin and it has 40 people on it, we count 40 impressions. But here, that's counted as one vehicle, just one bus. And we have a lot of customers that don't care how many people, they care about how many vehicles. Gas stations, EV chargers. They're like, I don't care how many people are in that vehicle. I just care about how many vehicles. That's what this does. This is your vehicle volume. So both are helpful. People use both all the time. Plan development will only appear in your account if you have a real estate license of some sort with us, a real estate package. So some of you won't have it, but this basically says what's being built or permitted in this area. And you can click on the projects and it will give you details on that project. You can look at it by category. It's just to be able to say what's happening in this area. And it's funny because I've seen people use the same data opposite ways. Like I've had people say, come and join us. There is no construction happening. It's peaceful and we're established. And I've seen people take the same data point and say, come and join us. Incredible amounts of development happening. So it's all about the story. Data is agnostic, but depends on what you're trying to convey. But this is helpful data to have. We do have an expansion product that allows you to download this data in bulk if you guys are really into real estate development. That's in the marketplace. It's called Development Plus. Crime profile. In the demographics section I showed you, we have a data set called AGS crime risk, which is risk of crime overall compared to the state, right? This is different. This is instances of crime. So this comes from a partner. They scrape with they actually work with they pull in data from federal and local police databases, and then they display it here. So property risk managers, asset managers, they tend to like this to see what's happening in an area. Do I need cameras? Do I need guards? What do I need? But for retailers, they'll look at this to say, all right, I've heard that there's a crime problem in an area, but it's pretty low here, but here maybe not, right? So take it all with a grain of salt. But I will also say occasionally you'll see zeros on here. Some very small data, police stations just don't report. But if you ever see that, let your CSM know because we want to ask the vendor anyway. We want to ask our partner. But we've had instances where they said, "Oh yeah, they changed their data set and now we got it fixed. It doesn't show zeros anymore." And others where that department just doesn't report. And then events is an optional add-on that will show events that are happening in an area if that's really what you're into or you're looking for events to sponsor or to be at. It'll show you feature events, past events, future, etc. So I said feature, I meant future. All right, almost done. Ranking. Ranking is at the bottom of the list, but it is some people's favorite part of the platform. It's interesting because so ranking benchmarks the traffic of a location. I don't know what's happening up here. Why our image is not I'll refresh it quickly. Ranking will benchmark the traffic of a location to its category or its chain. So for that Whole Foods, I could say, how does the location, the traffic here, the visits, how does it stack up against other Whole Foods or against grocery in general? Because I want to compare to both. So all three of these widgets are the same data, just displayed in different ways. So in the ranking overview here, I'm comparing to the chain, and a shopping center doesn't have a chain, so it's not here, right? There's nothing here. But this Whole Foods, for just straight traffic for these 12 months, I point this out to be very clear. Rankings change all the time because this is dynamic data. The data updates every day, and we're on about a 5-day lag. So if something happens, things change. This Whole Foods may be number 2 in the state right now, and they may be number 4 in the state in a year. It does change. So just don't marry yourself to a ranking, but it's still incredible data to have. So this particular Whole Foods, out of all the Whole Foods in the state of Georgia, here's where it stacks up for visits, right? Helpful to know. There's a list view. Of course, you can download this if you like. But now let's take into account the size of that box. If I look at visits per square foot, now it's number 4. So that means this store may be a little oversized, right? It may or may not. When you go look at visits per square foot, or if you look at just visits, these giant grocers are always the top. When you look at visits per square foot, typically Trader Joe's takes the cake. They're doing a lot of business out of a smaller box. Very, very normal. You'll see though, you can rank, if I go to category, you can rank at a national level, a state level. The state also has DMA and CBSA. So there's nation, these options, and then local rings. All of these are helpful. A grocer is not competing with a grocer 2 states away. But a theme park is, right? So it just depends on the business type and what they need to compare to. If you guys subscribe to retail sales, then you can rank by that as well. So all of the same data is here. If you like the list, here's where you can get a list straight. Don't have to go click a lot, but you can just download the list. So really helpful information. Ranking is some people's favorite thing, just especially if they don't get sales for businesses and they want to know how do these stack up against each other. But I do want to make a special point here that ranking is incredibly helpful, but it is not the end all be all answer. And I'll give you some examples of why. We see examples pretty often of dining or restaurant locations that rank low in visits, but rank high in sales because they do a lot of catering or a lot of delivery, especially with Uber Eats and DoorDash. So they may have very few people in there, but they do a lot of money out of that location. So sometimes a low ranking is alarming and sometimes it's not. It's just a piece of the larger puzzle. I'm going to skip loyalty. It's very self-explanatory. You guys can play with it. It just lets you set a number. Say your loyalty number is 3 a year. It lets you see how many people are in that bucket. I'm back in the overview. Now, in our last 15 minutes, I'm going to scroll down. We already looked at this stuff. This we skipped over. Tenant overview. I skipped it because this is basically, we had people who said, I want to see for a shopping center the ranking for all of those locations in one view, everybody in that shopping center. So I don't have to go look at them individually. With ranking itself, what I was just showing you guys in ranking, it's very important to note, don't just check your location. There are lots of instances where your location or whatever you're looking at, the ranking may be nothing sexy, but you may be next door to the busiest park in the whole metro area. Or real life example, I had an example where a real estate owner had a shopping center and the shopping center ranking was nothing impressive. But they had the number one Panda Express in the entire market, and they got 2 other dining deals done just because of that Panda Express ranking. Because people are like, people clearly go here to eat lunch. And it was true. So check things around you. Don't just look at the shopping center, check the individual tenants. The shopping center maybe, have a ton of visits, but we've seen the inverse too, where a shopping center is ranked super high. It's like the busiest outlet center in the whole area, the whole market, but that one store in it doesn't do well in terms of visits. So just keep it in mind. There's a lot to take into consideration. But the tenant overview puts them all, if it is a shopping center, all of the tenants that we have in Placer, you can look at their rankings all in one view. And you can play with this chart quite a lot. You can add more columns and say, I want to look at different rankings by different criteria. But it's just handy to be able to, compare. Like I'm going to compare to 2019. You can see, visits are up or down a certain amount. Here's how the rankings have changed. So it's just one big view of the tenants in a shopping center, which is pretty helpful. But like I said, just because something ranks low doesn't mean it's not a profitable store. Sometimes they are, but it's still good intel to have. Market Landscape and Map Studio, I will not open these, but these are custom map tools. We have whole separate trainings on them if you guys really are into making custom maps like competition aerials or demographic profile maps. We have whole other tools. We have Map Studio that has templates built in. You can build all these cool tools. We have whole separate trainings on them. They're incredibly helpful. So you guys can take those anytime if you like, but it's very handy to be able to say, I'm going to make a map and I'm going to show, all the other pizza restaurants and the busiest roads and other things on one map. So Map Studio and Market Landscape are both tools for that. And then audience overview and ranking overview are just kind of the basics from ranking and and demographics pulled over just for a quick look. But that's pretty much everything in your overview. All right. Got a few minutes left. Key things to add at the end. People will ask very commonly, how do I share a report? Two ways. Um, Placer is gated to customer only, right? So if you want to share the report with another Placer user, all you have to do is literally copy the URL and send the link. And it'll open for them with the same filters as long as they have access to what you're showing. So if you have a custom POI that they don't have access to and they try to open that link, it'll say missing permissions. So they do need to have access to the same things, but if you're sending it to a coworker and your account, just send them the URL. It'll open for them. But most people are like, all right, well, but I want to make a custom report, right? So under export, I never click print. I always click customize. I'm actually going to take one of these out just so this will load a little faster for us because it is a very robust custom PDF maker. When you click on customize, it's going to open a page that lets you customize everything about this report. The name, the colors, you can add your logo, you can, certain sections, if you're like, this doesn't tell the story I want, just turn it off, take it out. Other ones, if you're like, I want to zoom in on that map, you can customize each individual section. So all of this is flexible and you get the PDF set the way you want it, right? Including what you want to tell. And then I usually do both of these, but I get a PDF sent to my email and a link, and then I hit export, and it will give me my beautiful custom PDF and a link to that PDF, and you can send it to anybody you want. So this is where most people do custom reports, right? They will say, I'm going to build it out right here and then send this to somebody. But the important thing to know is this only uses widgets from the overview. So it won't have a widget from area analysis. If you want to do area analysis, there's a different export here. So there are a lot of instances where people will say, I've ended up with, 4 different PDFs. We know the more of you guys request, that you want better PDF options, I think we'll make more where we can say, hey, pull widgets from all these different sections at the same time. So if you want that, let us know. I'm surprised it hasn't been asked for more, but the other option, just so everybody knows, is we have a kind of a new thing with Placer is we have a few what we call push reports where you can work with your CSM and set up a report that gets pushed to you once a month that comes in with specific types of the locations you pick and you choose which report you want. There's like 3 or 4 options right now. 2 for Civic and then other ones that are based on shopping centers and retailers in an area. So talk to your CSM. Um, we are building more as well. So if we don't offer the one you want now, we might offer it, especially if you ask for it, because it's a big focus this year for us is instead of making you guys log in all the time, pushing that report to you once a month so you know what you need to look at when you go into the system. So both are happening at the same time. All right, last things. Academy. After the webinar, you're going to get a recording. This recording is going to link you to Academy, and the recording will now be in a webinar format here. So Academy, this new Academy just launched, 2 weeks ago. It's very new. And you guys will see a few things. If you're like, hey, I am an advertising, that's what I do. There's a whole catalog of advertising courses. And there's 2 different types you'll see over here. Self-led courses are where you read through the course and click and interact, and it saves all your progress. If you prefer this format, you prefer talking and hearing and screen, just do on-demand webinar. Then we have so almost everything in here. There's a self-led course and an on-demand webinar for the same thing, for the same like topic. Live webinars are what we're on right now. This is an upcoming advertising webinar we're doing, so it'll let you sign up for that. You'll also see if you're just like, I am a beginner, I just want to narrow down the beginner courses, right? So the filters will let you do a lot of cool stuff. But remember, I think this is important to know. A lot of people will say, I work for a real estate company, but I do site selection for a retailer. So they'll take courses here and here in both sections. You can take any of them, is my point. They're all open. You guys can take whatever you want and it will track all your progress. If you click on your actual learner profile, I have literally everything in here, but it tracks everything you've done. You can save courses to come back to. And next year we will be offering, you'll get badges and certifications, like official LinkedIn certifications for this. So all in the works. We're excited about it. There is also a calendar of upcoming webinars. This is the one we're on right now. And then once we're not live anymore, it will go in here and be on demand. You can go back to it as many times as you want. So it's pretty handy. And that's Academy. Anything else I wanted to mention? Oh, other types of webinars, we've had quite a few people say training webinars really help me, but also I just want to know how people talk about trends with this data. So this is on our main website. We have a page called Discover, and these are all sessions we've done where we're not training you. This is where we're talking to pros in these fields. Like right here, we talked to a bunch of grocery people, and we had them on a panel, and they talked about what's happening in the market. It's very helpful if you're able to see not just what you're doing at a small scale with your data, but if I'm in the grocery business, what are people doing at large scale? What are the macro trends we're seeing? So these webinars are all on demand. You can come watch them anytime. You fill out a little form. And there's also on the main website something called the Anchor right here. And we put a ton of information here all the time. Like we just put out our mall index. This is a big one. I'm about to post this on LinkedIn. What is driving discretionary spending? So we do a bunch of research for you, is my better way to put it. We have a whole research team. So people will say, I know what's happening with my store, but what's happening with beauty in general or BevAlc, right? So we do it all almost every day. A new article goes up and you can search if you're just like, you know what, I'm taco. I'm just gonna, well, that's not right. I didn't spell it right. Taco. But you can search for terms and it will start to give you, right? QSR value promotions for Taco Bell. Here's all the stuff that mentions taco. So I just want to show you guys there are a lot of resources. So you've got your help center, you've got these webinars, you've got the academy, you've got these larger trend pieces. There's a lot of stuff and it's a little overwhelming at first. So next step, as you guys get started and get play around with Placer, if you haven't already done a kickoff call with your CSM, you probably will. You'll talk to them, they'll talk about what you're trying to achieve, and they will coach you through it. So you are never by yourself. We have a lot of people who want to be self-service, so we give you all the tools, but we will also be here to assist, which is very important. So that's a lot. That is 90 minutes of straight data I've been giving you guys. It's a lot at one time. I'm excited you guys are here. I'm sure I'll meet a lot of you over, we do events and conferences as well. So we'll see you guys over time or here in the webinars. If you need anything at any time, email your CSM or email me. If you don't have their email, I'll direct you right to them. We're all one team. And we will be here to help. If you guys have other topics that you're like, I really would like a webinar on how to do XYZ, I have a running wish list. Send it to me anytime. I will let you know if we have it coming up or if we have a recorded session on that topic, or we'll plan a future one. And that's it. I know that was a lot of information, Firehose. Thank you so much for you guys for hanging out this long. We really appreciate you and good luck getting started. We will talk to you shortly. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.